So this tutorial video will explain how you can do 8.3.3 on page 121 of Compute IT2. So you might want to go back to page 117 and you can see there is actually a bank menu which greets the user and gives them 4 options. So that's what we're constructing now. So we're going to give the user 4 options. We represent each option with a diamond in a flowchart. We use an oval for the start and the finish. We use a rhombus for input and output. So each of these input and outputs will greet and ask the user their name, etc. And then finally we'll give the user 4 options. The first option will be like to check your bank balance. Then they'll have the option to speak to an operator. They'll have the option to see your credit limit. And finally they'll have an option to log out. Now we want to use arrows to represent the flow of information. They must of course be pointing in the right direction. And each of these verify boxes is actually a subprogram. That's why you can see there's 2 lines at the end of each side of the rectangle. Each of those lines means this is a subprogram, and this is our verify subprogram. The verify subprogram only runs if the user picks the first, second, or third option, because if obviously they're checking their bank balance, it's important to run a verification subprogram. The verification subprogram will ask them to prove their identity before we give them access to information which only the member of the bank should have access to. So we're going to create here an input or output square and an arrow to represent what happens if the user just exits and doesn't go to the verification sub-procedure. Okay, choice 3, choice 4. Okay, so now you can see we're going to check our program, and you can see here each of the options that we're presenting the user. Okay, a whole bunch of verification questions. Okay, things like their mother's maiden name, their bank number, etc. And we'll just finish off the last option. So you can see here, if the user is verified, then they can have access to their bank balance, they can have access to their credit limit, or they can speak to an operator. So that's why we're adding an extra input or output box for when their identity is proven. Okay, and then if their identity is proven, we actually want a loop. So we're going to create a line so that after they choose option 1, option 2, or option 3, they can go back to the menu and choose another option if they wish, or just leave the call. Okay, now here is our subprogram, our verification subprogram. So when the user initiates the subprogram, it'll actually run the abstracted program you can see in the top corner here. So we'll ask the user a whole bunch of questions, and we're going to have to output many times because each of these questions need to be output. And some of the questions will be designed to ensure our customer is who they are supposed to be before they're shared information. Okay, so we'll add some text here, and the first question, of course, we want to ask them is to check that they have the same name as the customer is supposed to. Obviously, make that a bit smaller. Then the next question we want to ask them is to get their account number to make sure we have the right information. Then the next information we want to ask in our subprogram is their date of birth. Another question, we want to ask their mother's maiden name. And then one final verification question in our verification subprogram will be, okay, we can see in the original program, it is to get their postcode. Okay, now the verification subprogram will run all the way through, answer each question, and then finally, after the subprogram's finished, it returns back here and continues with the rest of the main program. So we'll output the relevant information that they asked for before we initiated the subprogram. And then it goes on a loop and takes them back to the start. Just one final option. If they choose option 4, obviously we're going to say, thank you for calling the bank, goodbye. And that's what we're going to output down here. So this is how we go. Start, present information, give them the options, run the subprogram, go back to the loop, and then eventually end the call.